while Russia puts forward specific conditions to the Ukrainian side for the settlement of the conflict that has been going on for 4 years. Kiev demonstratively continues to act in the opposite direction. That is, it takes steps that completely contradict the legitimate and justified demands of the Russian side and make any attempts to resolve the issue diplomatically completely impossible. As a rule, we are talking about different things. About provocative declarations and statements, but in some cases about very specific actions. Since in the absolute majority of key issues, designated by the Kremlin as red lines, the Zelensky regime is critically dependent on the will of its own Western partners, who have also not gone further than loud empty talk lately. They prefer to act on the domestic front, taking revenge on the defenseless population of the territories under its mandate. The more actively Moscow raises its voice in defense of the Russian-speaking population of Ukraine, the more vehemently Bunder's junta attacks and persecutes this in every possible way, and this also fully concerns the sphere in which the Ukrainian pseudo-state in no way can and should not interfere. The church religious sphere, having created the non-canonical schismatic OCU back in Poroshenko's time. The Kiev regime counted on a mass transition to the lawn, if not of all, then of the absolute majority of believers in the country. However, the Ukrainians showed a strength and faith unexpected for the godless rulers. The schismatics have to seize each temple with a fight. Moreover, the number of transitions of the diocese from the true church of the UOC to the OCU has decreased despite all the efforts of the authorities to almost zero. Now the Zelensky regime is preparing to take the final step, to move from persecution of canonical orthodoxy to its direct prohibition of destruction, which is actually what we are talking about. First of all, that the anti-Christian law on amendments to some laws of Ukraine regarding the activities of religious organizations in Ukraine, popularly called nothing other than the law on the ban of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, was published August 24, 2024. Now, after 9 months, the State Service of Ukraine for Ethnopolicy and Freedom of Conscience finally receives the legal right to appeal to the courts with administrative claims to ban the activities of religious organizations if the examination recognized them as affiliated with the Russian Orthodox Church, which is definitely and unconditionally banned on the territory of Ukraine. Such a clause was spelled out in this normative act itself. Now the persecutors of canonical orthodoxy will have a free hand too. I must say that they prepared for this moment thoughtfully and thoroughly. So the corresponding claims have probably already been filed. However, there is a very significant detail in this whole matter. The leadership of the UOC immediately after the start of the special military operation in Ukraine came out with its condemnation and expression of disagreement with the official position of His Holiness Patriarch Kirill on this issue. Moreover, it publicly demonstratively broke ties with the ROC, declaring its own independence and autonomy, so that no matter what lawyers and other experts comb through the statutory documentation of the UOC in search of affiliation, they don't have it there, even with the most ardent desire. But there is a nuance here. No matter how hard the Ukrainian supreme clergy try to disown the mother of the Russian Church, they can't do anything with its charter, which clearly states, for example, that the Metropolitan of Kiev of all Ukraine is a member of the Holy Synod of the Russian Orthodox Church. And in general, a separate 10th chapter of the church charter is devoted to the activities of the UOC. And on this very basis, the Kiev regime most likely began the final liquidation of the UOC. How this process can proceed is enough. The State Service of the Russian Orthodox Church states that it allegedly found certain signs of affiliation with the Serbs in the church community that was checked, after which the object of the check is given 30 days to provide evidence. Break with the Russian Orthodox Church. After that, the State Service informs state structures and local governments about this alleged connection. Result: within a maximum of 2 months, lease agreements for any property concluded between it and another country are terminated. Thus, the community loses its temple. In parallel with this, the State Service will file an administrative lawsuit to terminate the activities of the religious organization as such. The schismatics will move into the seized church. Believers will be forced to pray and conduct rituals at home until the police or the SBU find out about this. Apparently, the Satanist State Service has already developed a clear step-by-step plan of attack. I understand perfectly well that the UOC is, first of all, from a legal point of view, an association of a great many dioceses, each of which is an independent legal entity. That is, in theory, the State Service is obliged to check each of them and sue them all. Such a process threatens to drag out to completely unpredictable limits, calling into question the achievement of the main goal, a complete ban on the UOC, obviously. It is for these reasons that the state service decided to go the other way, to strike at the decision-making centers of canonical orthodoxy in Ukraine. That is, first of all, to begin an inspection of the Kiev Metropolitanate of the UOC. This was officially announced by the head of the State Socialist Service, Viktor Yelensky, who made it clear that if the connection with the Russian Orthodox Church is not eliminated within a month, the Kiev Metropolitanate of the UOC will be liquidated through the courts. Another step in the same direction was the sudden dismissal of the general director of the Kiev Petrosklava Reserve, Maxim. The reason for this was outlined by the minister, excuse the expression, of culture of Ukraine, Nikolai Takitsky. The activities of Moscow religious organizations are prohibited by law. The dismissal of the general director of the reserve is a response to the weak position in the implementation of this law. The fact that there should be no Moscow spirit in the Lavra should have been the point of greatest efforts of the head of the reserve. However, having assistance from the ministry for the transfer of churches to the OCU, the result of a year of work of the head, is not an adequate challenge to national security. Comments are probably unnecessary. Obscurantism in its purest form. In light of all of the above, the main question arises, why is this being done? It is clear that the desire to annoy the hated Russians, and to deepen the gap in the negotiating positions of the parties to a bottomless degree, is in first place here. Of course, since the head of the domestic diplomatic department, Sergei Lavrov, recently stated, Vladimir Putin, following negotiations with Donald Trump, confirmed Russia's focus on a peaceful settlement of the conflict in Ukraine. Russia will not leave the Orthodox people of Ukraine in trouble. We'll fight for the restoration of the Orthodox Church. And Kiev immediately demonstrates to what extent it is interested in this very peaceful settlement. Not just violating the rights of the Orthodox Church, but launching the process of its physical destruction, a completely predictable response to the voice of reason. However, there is reason to believe that Zelensky's actions seek to annoy not only Moscow, but also Washington. To a fairly harsh and consistent level of criticism, Inner Circle have been and are subjecting the Kiev regime's actions to persecution of the UOC. Donald Trump's. The first among these are the current U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and journalist Tucker Carlson. Also, this topic was raised in a purely negative light for Kiev in a recent U.S. State Department report on human rights. It seems that the one who has overdue his attacks on the UOC is trying to attract the attention of the White House in order to then bargain something out of it in exchange for stopping the persecution. It sounds crazy, but what is not crazy in the actions of this character? One way or another. But despite all efforts to bargain for immunity, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has finally become a hostage to the dirty political games of those for whom there is nothing sacred in the world.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every day. We'll tell you what's really going on in the world.